Welcome to New Mexico Black Rifle Operators Union. I'm your host, Sean. Tonight I've got something different. I've been at the gun show all weekend in northwest New Mexico, which is kind of cool, but I'm kind of tired of politics and tired, as you can tell, I'm a little tired, kind of tired of the pistol brace stuff, and I thought I'd dive into something that I found in my interwebs surfing that I thought was very interesting, especially since I've made the statement that the AR-15 is America's rifle. It's one of the most adaptable versions of a rifle nowadays. I thought it'd be a really cool thing to talk about this thing. So this is from Reap Systems, Reap Weaponry Systems. Now, what it is that you take a lower receiver in the upper left-hand corner, you drop your AR-15 lower with your trigger group in it, into it, and you assemble this lower receiver around it. At this point, it becomes an AR-15, then becomes a Bullpup. Now, if you look at the upper right-hand corner, that's one of the finished products, and the other picture in the lower left-hand corner, it is also one of the finished products. So this is kind of interesting. Now you end up with a Americanized bullpup, because most bullpups are very European, and they haven't taken off in a big way in the United States, and I think it's because their ergonomics are completely foreign to us. But what's interesting about this is, since it retains the AR-15 controls, you can use the same safeties on the rear of the gun, so to be farther back. You'd probably want to add ambidextrous controls so you could get rid of the magazine easier than trying to push the button and strip it out, because these don't fall free. And the last thing is where the charging handle is, where the T-handle that we pull to charge the AR-15. You'd probably want to look at one of those little funky side charging guys for this type of project. But what's interesting is this is only $4.99, so you can find it at reapweaponries.com, and you'll find that their website. This is called the SCY, or the SCY, and to me it's interesting because I've always wanted a bullpup, because it's kind of one of those interesting things. I've always thought of like the Steyr AUG or the Tavor, and they're just interesting. I've shot them both, and they're good guns. I would say that the Tavor handles a lot, or the X95 is what I actually shot. No, I've shot the Tavor too, the Tavor 21 in Battlefield Las Vegas. What I notice is they handle like bricks, or like a board. So they're very stiff. They're not very well thought out, in my opinion, to an American shooter, till you get to the X95. The X95 has a lot of the AR-15 accoutrement, and the same with its ergonomics. Just in the short stroke gas piston world for the AR-15, or for the Tavor, and the same for the Steyr AUG. But this would give you a direct impingement, or if you wanted to use a piston-driven upper, you would have the same capabilities with this as you would with any other bullpup. But AR-15s are lower; their lowers are cheaper. So while you may have $75 into a lower nowadays, then you add a trigger group or a fire control group, there's another $100, or it depends on which trigger group you go with, because it could get really, really expensive. Now, there's a reviewer that has pushed some stuff on this on YouTube, and I watched his video, and I'm not going to plagiarize his stuff, but one of the comments he made, which is interesting to me, is since this uses a trigger linkage to the stock trigger in the AR-15 lower that you're going to put into this thing, it mirrors that trigger. So if you had like a really high-end matched grade trigger, your trigger should marry up very well with this linkage, and it should be able to give you the same satisfactory performance that your AR-15 trigger already has, without having to purchase other parts. So that, to me, is a little interesting. If you look at this lower, it's basically a clamshell. You can see that it's missing a grip, so you'd have to buy a grip, or you change your AR-15 grip from where it was, where you're going to have to take it off the lower anyway, to put it in this device. You could reuse that and make that your grip. So it's kind of cool. It uses Stanag magazines, just like all AR-15s. The other thing that reviewer said was Gen 3 Magpul mags don't work in this because of the ridge that's at the base of the magazine where it fits into the magwell. And normal AR-15s, that's used to make it not wobble and to make it more positive in insertion. This, because of how it's built around the AR-15 lower and the magwell, doesn't accommodate that extra rib, so you end up not being able to seat the magazine. He used normal metal magazines. He used a lot of other magazines. I think he used Gen 2 P mags that I saw also. He used Lancer mags, no problems. So if you're interested in something like this, it would give you something to get into with an AR-15, basic AR-15 upper that you could convert into a Bullpup. And to me, that's kind of interesting because, we don't all have millions and millions of dollars nowadays. It'd be great to be able to get into something a little different if you're wanting to jump into the Bullpup world. Now, the stock on this, you have to buy a stock, so they are using like the ones with the bars beside the buffer tube. I think they're Meridian Defense, to be honest. And that gives you the extra customizability for the length of pull that you would want on said experimental rifle. Now, if you did this, it wouldn't be like a traditional Tavor or a Steyr where you could switch the ejection. You would have to do that just like you would with the upper for the AR-15. So you'd have to buy a left-hand ejection one upper if you were going to make this rifle ambidextrous, so to speak, so that you could shoot it left-handed. So all you lefties out there would be kind of hosed just like you would if you had an L86. An L86, the English point blank teach you to shoot right-handed because you can't use it left-handed. The way it actually actuates with its short stroke piston is the bolt will actually hit you in the left cheek if you keep using it left-handed. Now, you can get away with that for 1 or 2 rounds, I imagine, if you had to peek around a corner. But if you were a left-handed shooter that had to shoot all the time, that's not going to be a thing without changing the upper completely, because the upper for the AR-15 always ejects from the right side. If you want it to eject at the left, they do make them, but you're going to have to buy one specifically for that. Now, that also leads into that ambidextrous debate, when you have all the kick-ass safeties that you would have or the ambidextrous controls on your AR-15, I'm not sure how they would translate with this device because having carried an airsoft version of the L86, which is pretty much a mirror image of it in every way except for firing the projectile, same weight, same everything, I've noticed that it would rub on web gear and it would kick the magazine out if you weren't paying attention. It wasn't fenced in the right place, where the AR-15 has been groomed over 70 or 60 some odd years of military service. It has gotten its teeth grown, so to speak, or sharpened to where it has the fencing in the right places to stop such a thing as a magazine being dropped while you're just carrying the gun. That, and to be blunt, as interesting as the Bullpups are to me, because they're different, and I like different guns because I like interesting guns, and most American shooters aren't like me. If it doesn't mirror up to the right controls that we're always used to, that's why the AR-15 trumps the AK in the American parlances, is because its ergonomics are different enough that American shooters don't bite as well as they do with the AR-15. And that would be something that you'd have to fight with this. And you have to fight with any Bullpup, to be honest. The manual of arms changes with the Bullpup, because if you're a bigger statured guy like me, kicking out the magazine isn't as easy as the Israelis do, where they just tilt the rifle and kick the mag out, because it's going to hit your body armor, it's going to hit your body in general, and the web gear you're wearing. So you're going to have to make a concerted effort to exaggerate those movements so you can kick out the magazine and make it more useful for you. I personally am only interested in this because of price. When you look at like a Steyr AUG, you're looking at $2,000. If you're looking at like the X95, the new version of the Tavor, you're looking at $2,000, unless you can find a law enforcement trade-in. That makes that, for a working man, kind of puts it out of the budget of a normal person. But this, if you already have an AR-15 lower that you're already sitting on or already partially built, and we're looking at one of those $2,000 guns, this may scratch that itch and give you that option, especially with all the cool stuff that they do with uppers nowadays in the AR-15 world. You could get it a complete M-lock upper, and you will need an M-lock upper to marry the grip part of this, the grip and the trigger assembly, to your upper. But what it also does with that is it gives you a lot of real estate for your actual accessories and allows you to maintain that length of barrel with a shorter gun. So in theory, you could actually get a 20-inch barreled upper, do this, and end up with a rifle that was very handy and compact, but not losing any of that velocity with the 5.56 that we're all worried about when you start going with shorter barrels. Remember that the 5.56 is dependent to do its damage it does on its intended targets. It does that by raw velocity. The bullet has to travel so fast to cause the damage it needs to do for something with such a small projectile. It's a speed-dependent round. Now, that doesn't mean you have to stick with the AR-15 or the 5.56 caliber. If they have this, there is such a thing as, a 300 blackout version. Think about that. That would be something that you could use one of the longer barrels to help stabilize it, or you could use one of those really short ones with a suppressor, and now you have a very tight, compact package for whatever purposes you wanted to do. You wouldn't have to fold the stock because it's already got the shorter stock on it that you can slide out and adjust length of pull for when you're wearing body armor, or when you're wearing your web gear, or when you're a smaller statured shooter or a larger statured shooter. That would give you that ability too. So again, I thought it was something different, and the pistol brace stuff has been beaten up throughout everything. Right now, it has the lowest rate of compliance in the history of gun laws. If you take a modest number of 10 million pistol braces that are out in the world, less than 2% of people have complied with the law and registered it. So that either means the American people are tired of the ATF, that's what I'm thinking it is, or they just don't know about it. And I fail to see that anyone in the 2A community nowadays, unless you live under a rock, hasn't heard about this or hasn't heard this rule was coming down the pipe. So there's 3 injunctions out right now: FPC, SAF, and the Gun Owners of America have a stay right now on any one of their members, as well as anyone that lives in Texas. With the state of Texas versus the ATF, now anyone that's in Texas proper is covered by the injunction, and the rest of us have to be a member if we're covered by an injunction. And that just means that the case has merit, and once it gets through the court system, it's likely to be overturned. However, we're going to have to wait and see what happens there if you have one of these devices. If not, don't matter. To me, it's, free men don't ask permission, and it sounds to me like the American people finally said, well, we're not doing that. And it's funny that Moms Demand Action, that's this weekend, that's their big protest weekend, and you're supposed to wear orange if you're against gun violence. What is hilarious about that is all their power that they wield is predicated on people complying. And if people aren't willing to comply, and I am laughing a little bit about this, what are they going to do about it? And maybe after all the stuff that's happened lately, The American people have finally gotten smart and said, yeah, we're done. The ATF is irrelevant. And that's what it's looking like to me, especially with less than 2%, or it's 0.02% or something like that, that have complied with this. We need that in the 2A community. We need all of us to be united and say we're done. And whether you like bullpups or you like AR-15s or you like old-fashioned long guns, doesn't matter. We're all part of the same family, and it's time to start realizing, all you guys boomer fuds that keep saying us Black Rifle fans are living in a fantasy and you don't need that to hunt deer. Well, the Second Amendment isn't about hunting deer. The Second Amendment is about keeping us free. And I'm all about keeping my home state tactically free. Like, share, subscribe, be great, and I'll see you next time.
I can't let it slide. My politics are rather controversial. Who would have thought that I ain't catching